You quit drinking weeks ago, but in your dreams every night, you still find yourself at your local haunt ordering a whiskey. So, why does it feel like your brain is out to get you? And do drug dreams actually increase the likelihood that you'll relapse? Today, I, a drug scientist, can explain the ins and outs of drug dreams, including ways that you can diminish their impact. Science has shown that our dreams actually change during recovery. So we have different types of dreams. Some of them are more negative and fearful, for example. And we actually see that these dreams, a lot of times, actually have people relapsing within them. So if you quit smoking, you'll find yourself lighting up a cigarette in a dream. If you quit drinking, you'll find yourself drinking. And this typically leads to people waking up and feeling guilty, like they felt like they did something wrong because in their dreams, they were living out a relapse that they didn't actually experience in reality. While it might feel genuinely terrible, there's actually nothing really wrong with drug dreams. In fact, it just makes sense from the perspective of why we dream. So, the leading theory in neuroscience as to why we dream is something known as the activation synthesis hypothesis. This is basically saying that your brain is trying to make like patterns of all of the information that you have processed. So basically, what happens is throughout the day, you experience like a ton of different emotions. So, you were happy, you were sad, you were disgusted. And then throughout the day, you're also thinking about thousands, if not millions, of different things. You're thinking about the time that you went to horse camp. You're thinking about what your boyfriend's ex-girlfriend looked like. You're thinking about all of these different things, and they're kind of fleeting thoughts going through your mind. But at night, they kind of just get like thrown back into this soup of neurons, and then what comes out is a dream. And if you've ever quit something that you're addicted to, you know exactly how much rumination goes on in your brain. Like when you've quit, that does not mean that you stop thinking about the drug. It would be amazing if that happened. It makes sense that when someone is trying to quit something, that they're going to dream a lot about that substance. And we see that drug dreams are fairly common. So in a specific survey, they found that 1/3 of all people who were addicted to some sort of substance reported that they experienced drug dreams after they quit. Now, this survey was weird. They just basically sent letters to random people's addresses and said, like, hey, have you taken any drugs? And if so, have you dreamt about them? And let me just say, if I got that letter, there is no way I'm answering that. And if I were, I'm not answering it truthfully. There are other less creepy studies that do show that, like, the majority of people who are addicted to blow, for example, do report drug dreams. We're talking about, like, over 3/4 of them. We see that drug dreams are not necessarily associated with good things. So, the more likely you are to have drug dreams, the more likely you are to crave the drug, and you're also more likely then to relapse. We know that there is a very strong link between craving and relapse. So we see that the more drug dreams that somebody has, the more likely they are to experience cravings, and the more likely they are to experience like negative symptoms of withdrawal. So more irritated or more depressed or having trouble sleeping. And both of those things are responsible for relapse. They're both contributing factors that lead people to be more likely to just start using the drug again. Here's the thing, not only are they common, but they last for a while too. So in that Coke study that I was talking about, what they found was that about 90% of people had drug dreams within the first month after stopping taking that drug. But then they also found that, like, we were talking about, over 70% of people still had them 6 months later. Every time you have a drug dream, this acts kind of like a cue for you to want to use again. So what we see is that everything that was previously associated with the drug, that becomes very strongly paired with the drug, and then those things can make you want to take the drug again. So common example of this, like you smoke a cigarette in your car, so every time you're driving somewhere you smoke, and then your car becomes paired with that cigarette. And so now when you go back into your car, you want to smoke, and after you've quit, you don't get that cigarette, and so you get a craving every single time. Say this as a person who has actually lived through this. It is hard to deal with. But what you have to basically do is keep telling your body, no, when I get into this car, I am not going to have a cigarette. And eventually it's going to basically relearn that car no longer is paired with cigarette. Car is paired with no cigarette. And so the cravings will stop eventually, or at least they'll mostly go away. Let me just say that the cravings sometimes never stop. So I quit smoking over 5 years ago. And there are still days in which I'm like, man, really want a cigarette. So you can see how things like cars and people and watching your friend drink something or seeing paraphernalia associated with that drug, you can see how all of those can make you want that drug again. Now, a dream is just basically a virtual reality of you using again. That is going to provoke an intense craving. And so people come out of that feeling first guilty, which actually makes people more likely to relapse too. But then second, they'll actually have a very strong craving. So we need a better way to figure out how to help people go through these drug dreams. Now, if you're dealing with this or if you're trying to quit and you just have cravings, here's some general tips that I can give from the scientific literature. As a reminder, I am not a doctor, so I'm not giving you any sort of medical advice, nor am I saying that this is going to work for everybody. Like, I quit smoking, and the way that I quit smoking is very different from how other people quit smoking. But in general, here are some things that might be beneficial. So, first, when it comes to cravings, they are typically relatively short. Now, AI says they're between 10 to 15 minutes. I have no idea where they get information. Well, actually, I do. It's a recovery center website, not actual science. But there is no science saying how long they typically will last. Some of them will be very fleeting. You just have like this like thought bubble that appears, like, oh man, I want a cigarette, and then it's gone. And some of them are like, you are in it for like hours. Like, distract yourself, because if you're just sitting there thinking about how much you'd like something, that'll just make you want to continue wanting it. Like, there's scientific literature that says that playing Tetris can actually help with things like this. In this case, distractions do actually work, especially ones that are like repetitive and like make you think about something. So, stupid phone games, having a conversation with somebody who talks a lot and you have to participate in that conversation. There are apps that are specifically built that you can check in during these times and distract yourself with that. Although sometimes I find that a little bit problematic, because then you're still thinking about the thing that you're craving, and you need to get out of that kind of mental environment and also physical environment too. So if you find yourself craving something and you're outside and somebody's smoking, just walk away. Note that that's one of those things in life that's simple to do, but not easy to do. Like, we also see that things like stress act as a cue. So recognize that when you're stressed, you're going to be more likely to want to relapse. Now, I'm not going to give you the advice to just not be stressed, because that's pointless advice. Like, how are you just not supposed to be stressed? Like, just stop being stressed. That's not helpful. Maybe you could do something that would de-stress yourself at least a little bit. And that might be distracting too, which could help. So this is something that we need to help people through. We don't tell people that this is very common. People typically feel a little bit guilty about it. And this is a thing that predicts whether or not somebody's going to relapse. So maybe addiction counselors should start asking about dreams. If you're an addiction counselor, please weigh in on this. Maybe this is something that we should just more normalize, because dreams seem to actually matter in things like relapse, and dreams seem to actually matter in things like psychiatric disorders too. Maybe it's time to start using them as an actual tool.